My Trading Journey. Part 1. Hello, and welcome to Think Big Trading Channel and welcome to my story. I'm a trader with a decade of experience navigating the financial markets. Back in 2000, I left my small hometown in rural Ohio, carrying nothing but an old suitcase, a few worn-out clothes, and a vague dream of a better future. I enrolled in a mechanical engineering program at a solid state university, not Ivy League, but respectable enough to make my parents proud. They'd call up neighbors, boasting, "Our Jack's studying engineering, tough stuff." Truth is, I didn't pick engineering out of passion. At 18, I barely knew what I was passionate about. I just liked tinkering, fixing a neighbor's broken fan, spending hours dismantling an old radio to see how it ticked. But liking something and making a living from it? That's a long, winding road. My dad said engineering was stable, a ticket to a steady job, no worries about unemployment. I trusted him. College flew by, 4 years of decent grades, nothing spectacular. I wasn't the star student, nor the struggling one. I was just there, quietly blending into the background, attending every lecture, hanging out with friends but never stealing the spotlight. I figured I'd graduate, land a job at some factory, get married, buy a house, raise kids, and grow old like countless engineers before me. A predictable life. But in my senior year, something shifted. I started working part-time, initially to ease the financial burden on my parents. I landed a gig at a small firm in Pittsburgh, designing steel structures for industrial warehouses. These weren't glamorous projects destined for magazine covers, but they were the backbone of the economy. I still remember my first day, the smell of welded steel and stale coffee, blueprints sprawled across desks, and a crew of weathered guys in faded t-shirts, eyes sunken from late nights. They weren't polished, but their passion was electric. It hooked me. At first, I handled grunt work, tweaking drawings, tallying materials, but I fell in love with it. There was something thrilling about watching a warehouse rise from a sketch into reality, seeing cold steel beams form the skeleton of a bustling production hub. I'd walk through construction sites, the hum of machinery in the air, knowing I had a hand in it. I'd work late, sometimes skipping meals, or hop on a bus to a site in West Virginia to check progress. I wasn't complaining, I felt alive, useful for the first time. Graduating in 2005, I faced a fork in the road. A few companies offered interviews, some projects needed engineers, but I stayed with that small firm. From an unpaid intern, I became a full-fledged engineer, then a site supervisor. I never regretted it. The work was grueling, but it felt right, grounded, not some lofty dream, but meaningful. 3 years later, my life settled into a rhythm, mornings at the site, evenings refining blueprints. No girlfriend, no lavish hobbies, few close friends, but I was content. Sometimes I wondered if a life of just enough, food, sleep, and leaving a small mark through my work, wasn't happiness in itself. Then, in late 2008, I got an unexpected call from a former client, Mike, who'd hired us to build a warehouse. I'd managed his project's technical docs, working closely with him for months. Mike was meticulous, soft-spoken but commanding. He said, "Jack, you ever think about switching things up? I'm running a high-tech farming operation in Iowa. I need someone I can trust to manage technical operations, better pay, room to grow." I paused, staring at the half-finished blueprint on my desk, then at the gray Pittsburgh sky outside. Saying yes meant leaving everything I'd built over 4 years, my job, my team, my projects. But a quiet voice inside whispered, "Living right isn't always enough. Sometimes you need to live different." I said yes. I moved to Iowa, trading city grit for red dirt fields, scorching sun, and torrential rain. The job was nothing like before. Instead of industrial designs, I tackled livestock barn layouts, drip irrigation systems, solar energy setups, and applied biology. I was learning from scratch, crops, animals, even people's mindsets. But I didn't feel lost, I felt reborn. Days were spent on site, nights poring over research. I learned from agronomists, local farmers, even spent a midnight checking water filtration systems or driving hours to inspect a model farm in Nebraska. I wasn't just an engineer anymore, I was a connector, bridging machinery, people, water lines, and investment capital. I realized engineering wasn't just about drafting, it was about building systems, relationships, and futures. I discovered a new side of myself, one that craved more than stability, one willing to venture into uncharted territory for a big enough reason. And sometimes, that reason was as simple as Mike saying, "I trust you." That's my story so far. I'm no genius, no prodigy, just an ordinary engineer who made an extraordinary choice. That choice led me to a world I never imagined, the world of trading. But that's for later chapters. For now, I invite you to pause and reflect. Have you ever chosen to live right? And have you ever dared to live different? The financial turn. I used to think hard work was enough. I'm not the sharpest tool in the shed, nor a master strategist. I'm just an engineer who believes in the value of effort and commitment. That belief carried me through nearly 2 decades. After graduating in 2005, I earned my first paycheck, $2,000 a month. It wasn't much, but to me, it was everything. I could cover rent, send a bit home, and occasionally treat myself to a coffee on a sunny afternoon. By 2006, my salary crept up to $2,500, then $3,000. When I joined the farming operation in 2008, it jumped to $5,000, a fortune for a small-town kid with no connections. As the company grew, so did my role. I managed bigger projects, got travel stipends, even year-end bonuses. By 2013, I was earning close to $15,000 annually. I stayed frugal, saving most of it, dreaming of a small plot of land in rural Ohio where I'd build a house and grow a garden. But life isn't a straight line. By 2015, the company hit rough waters, projects stalled, funding dried up, and people started leaving. I stayed, loyal to a fault, hoping things would turn around. They didn't. In 2018, at 37, my department was dissolved. I was jobless, with dwindling savings and no clear path forward. I tried freelancing, designing residential blueprints, handling permitting paperwork. A good month brought in $2,000 to $3,000, but the work was inconsistent. Referrals dried up, I had no brand to attract new clients. Anxiety crept in. One rainy July evening, alone in my tiny apartment, I opened my laptop and typed, "stock market." I'd heard people talk about it but never paid attention. To me, it was for finance bros or the idle rich, not for an engineer who lived and breathed blueprints. I opened a brokerage account, funded it with $500, my last bit of spare cash, and thought, let's try it, like a learning experiment. I got burned. I bought stocks based on random forum tips, chasing green candles and panic selling on red days. I knew nothing about technical analysis, fundamentals, or market cycles. To me, trading was a casino. I lost that $500, then funneled in another $1,000, then $2,000, not because I was reckless, but because I ran out of money to lose. That's when it hit me, the market doesn't care about you. Without an edge, you're always playing catch-up. I needed a real job. After months of rejections, I landed a role in 2019 at a major agribusiness firm in Illinois, building large-scale livestock facilities. My starting salary was $6,000 a month. I was back in my element, traveling across states, sleeping on-site, eating takeout. During peak seasons, I worked 20 days straight, barely seeing home. My pay climbed to $7,000, then $8,000 a month. One year, I cleared $25,000 total, including bonuses. I paid off debts, rebuilt savings, and thought I was set. But trouble brewed, not from the work, but from people. My boss and I clashed. He was a top-down decision maker, I preferred slow, analytical approaches. Small disagreements grew into distance, then isolation. I was sidelined from key projects, my ideas ignored. By 2021, I was burned out, physically and mentally. I quit, citing strategic misalignment with the company. The truth? I was done with the corporate hamster wheel. The trading awakening. At 40, I came home to an empty apartment and a quieter life. For the first time in 20 years, I had no alarm clock, no deadlines. I revisited old blueprints, my income records, $2,000 a month at the start, peaking at $25,000 a year. I wondered, how much of that was truly living, and how much was just surviving? I had no answers, but I knew I needed to rethink everything. I returned to the stock market, not to gamble, but to study it like I once studied steel frameworks. I treated it like a construction site, except the materials were human psychology, not concrete. I read books, watched tutorials, learned technical indicators. Trading wasn't a game of luck, it was a discipline, as rigorous as engineering. I reopened my brokerage account, funding it with a chunk of savings, enough to sting if I lost it. That pain forced discipline, setting stop losses, tracking trades, journaling emotions. The hardest part wasn't mastering charts, it was mastering myself. Every trade was a mirror, reflecting greed, fear, impatience. I wasn't the confident engineer anymore, I was a rookie trader, staring at candlesticks, second-guessing everything. I started a trading journal, logging not just entries and exits but how I felt. I realized trading is a psychological journey. Every loss tests your conviction, every win tempts you to get cocky. The market didn't hand me easy money, it took time, capital, and confidence. But it gave me something else, truth. Truth about who I am. Have you ever had a moment, a layoff, a failure, a sharp turn, that forced you to rethink your path? For me, trading wasn't a calculated career move, it was a serendipitous challenge. My journey's just beginning. In my next story, I'll share how my first trading accounts blew up, how I doubted myself, and what kept me going. If you're searching for your own path, wrestling with choices, or need a story to reflect on, stick with me for part 2 of my trading journey. Thank you for listening to this slow, honest tale in a world that moves so fast. If it resonates, give it a like, share it with someone who might need it. And if you're carrying your own questions or quiet moments, maybe trading, or something else entirely, is waiting for you at the end of this pause.